I'm pretty sure it's not a surprise that Final Fantasy XIV is a very big game with a very large story. Most of its main points are hit by doing the main scenario questline, but with the game expanding as much as it has, some side stories and raids have bled over into the main scenario. That means that if you miss certain side content, you'll end up missing certain key bits of information. So I figured I'd tell you guys 5 of the stories that should actually be mandatory, but they still aren't. The first one on this list is the Realm Reborn Dragoon questline. This quest is important for one reason and one reason only. This is where you first meet Estinian. I mean, it does also lead into this little, not that important event called the Dragon Song War, but Estinian is by far the most important part of this. After he stole Nidhogg's eye from Ishgard and headed to Eorzea, the Ishgardians sent his predecessor to hunt him down. They were afraid that Nidhogg's eye being messed with would cause the dragon to attack again. Well, it turns out that Estinian had taken it because the dragon was already about to attack, and he had planned on using the eye to lure him away. Then he gets corrupted by the eye and tries to kill you, so you have to beat the crap out of him. This story introduces Estinian, like I said before, and it gives a reason why he both trusts your combat abilities and you as a person. It also lets you know that you'll be dealing with Nidhogg soon, and it shows that Estinian can be taken over by the dragon, something that's also important. The fact that this story is missed by everyone who refuses to play the floor tank is a serious problem because it has a whole lot of important stuff talked about in a very short time. The next story that is extremely important is Eden, the Shadowbringers 8-man raid series. The story follows Reen, Thancred, Urianger, the Warrior of Light, and eventually Gaia on a quest to restore the damaged world of the First. Not only is Eden the creature that caused the Flood of Light, it killed Minfilia. It honestly deserves a coffee biscuit for that because, well, I hated her. It's mean, I know, I don't care, she sucked. If you don't believe me, just think back to how many times you had to run to the Wakened Sands because there was no way to teleport straight there. Now, on a more important note, Eden turns out to be Matron, an Ascian who, along with the love of his life Logrith, who turns out to be Gaia, had been in charge of prepping the First for the rejoining. Ardbert and his allies defeated them. They killed Logrith and caused the Light Ether to turn Matron into the first Sin Eater. All of that is stuff that people need to know since this event is what caused you to end up on the First in the first place. But the most important part of this story is the healing of an ether damaged land. With what is very likely to be a focal point of 7.0, the fact that there is a method for repairing a destroyed world is something that will be talked about a lot, and if people don't know where it came from, they will definitely have questions. The third story on this list is the Warring Triad, which is the Heavensward Trial. Out in Azys Law, 3 ancient icons known as the Warring Triad, who had been summoned way back during the war between Mera City and Allag, they are starting to break free. Mainly because of the Warrior of Light's battle with Thornton. The information comes by way of a mysterious young-seeming boy named Unakalai, who goes with you, Urianger, Kral, and Ishtola to deal with the icons. Since the Allagans had found a way to contain the Primals, the Garleans are obviously after it, which causes you to have to face off against regular Van Hydras and the 6th Legion again. You fought him during the MSQ, but you never find out what happens to him unless you do this story. Along with finding out about Regula's fate, you learn about Unakalai, who is a fallen warrior of light from the Void. He tells you bits and pieces about how the 13th Shard fell, and considering the fact that Ishtola mentions him in the MSQ, it is highly likely that this quest chain will get the Crystal Tower treatment and will be made mandatory by the time 7.0 comes out. Unakalai ends up playing a major part in a side story involving the new Warriors of Light of the First who are trying to restore the 13th Shard. I'd hope that the story gets expanded on in 7.0, but considering the fact that you have to get a job of each type to 80 and complete 4 role quests to unlock it, I highly doubt that story will become a part of the main scenario. But hopefully they'll do some type of side content to keep that quest going because, well, it'll kind of suck if they just forget about it since, it took a lot of work to unlock it in the first place. The next story on this list is the Heavensward Raid series Alexander. The Goblin organization called the Illuminati because they never come up with original names, summoned the primal Alexander and they plan on using it to travel through time and rewrite history. The story is extremely important since it is the main reason that Shadowbringers even exists. Alexander was the reason that Sid was able to unlock the secrets of time travel. So in other words, the whole reason that the Scions are still alive at all is because of this one story that you can completely miss. Alexander is probably one of the most important primals in Final Fantasy XIV, aside from Hydaelyn and Zodiark of course. But the story that is the most important to the lore is not Alexander. It's Omega. Omega is awakened at the end of Heaven's Ward to fight Shinryu. Omega wins the fight, which is why the Guardians are able to detain the Primal and Xenos is able to take his powers. Even more important than that, without Omega, the dragons never would have come to Aetheris, which means there would have been no war in Marasidia, no Bahamut, no Warring Triad, no Dalamud, no Nidhal. Ishgard wouldn't have existed, no dragons. Pretty much the entirety of the story playing out as it had wouldn't have happened had Omega and the Omicron never attacked the Dragon Star. And during your adventure into Omega's simulation, another extremely important moment occurs. Midgard Sormer exhausts all of his power to keep Omega from killing you, which is why the dragon isn't around to help during the final days. So without playing through the Stormblood raids, people wouldn't have a clue as to why the dragon stayed out of what is the most important moment in the entire game. There are a lot more side stories that really should be mandatory, but I'll likely cover those in another video at a later date. For now, this is the end of my list. All of the stories I've mentioned here are covered on my channel, so I'll leave links in the description so you can catch up on them if you missed them. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on all notifications, leave a comment because it helps with the algorithm, and donate to the channel to help me out. Until next time guys, later.